Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka M Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you all, to the best of my ability, the latest episode of HBO's Westworld. We are indeed on Season 1, Episode 2, Chestnut. So, you may be noticing that this review has been uploaded at a peculiar time, and I'm gonna pin the tail on the donkey of HBO for uploading this episode to HBO Now at a very strange time. That is because of the presidential debates and all that delightful jazz. So I hope that this video finds you well, if not at a strange time of day and strange time of week. But this review is going to be spoiler filled, but if you haven't seen the show yet, I implore you to bless yourself with its existence, experience it, come on back here, and we shall discuss. Of course, this is also a completely impromptu, improvised review as well, so inevitably there are going to be points and details that I miss and fail to address, so keep in mind that this video is just the beginning of the conversation. That's something that I tend to say in all of my reviews, but I just really want to drive this point home, because when it comes to Westworld, we are dealing with a show that is just so expansive and provocative and wild in terms of its ideas that there is no possible way that I can cover everything. I feel like a show of this caliber, you could write a freaking doctoral dissertation on, okay? I'm already getting that sense. I hope I'm not overstating it, but I think y'all know what I mean, so let's get into it. One way that I like to analyze shows or movies or literature, whatever form of media, is by breaking things down into themes. And there are a lot of dual themes that are explored in Chestnut that stood out pretty prominently to me. So one of those is the idea of spectacle versus subtlety. And that's kind of at the core nucleus of what Westworld is about. And we also see that idea acted out with hosts such as Maeve, who, in order to bolster her performance and meet sales quotas, some of the designers think that it's a good idea to up her aggression factor, because, oh, you know, she's a prostitute, she's got to get after it. But then one of the other diagnostic technicians comes in and decides, you know, let's actually downplay that aggression and up the emotional acuity, up her ability, the ability of this model, of this host, to perceive and to read the guests. And in that same way, we see that there is a clash of ideologies between Dr. Robert Ford and Lee Sizemore, my apologies, as Lee is trying to unveil this grand new attraction in Westworld that he calls, oh golly, what was it, the Odyssey on the Red River or something along those lines, and it's immediately and unceremoniously shot down by Dr. Ford, who suggests that what keeps the guests coming back time and time again is the subtlety, the details, the quiet discoveries and things that they alone can hold on to and internalize. You know, and it's not just for people to learn about who they are, but who they could be, you know. Of course, we have to call these ideas into question because we don't exactly know quite yet what Dr. Ford's motives are. But it's clear that he is a designer and a creator with a bit of a master plan that he is looking to unfold in the near future. Something that he reveals to Bernard Lowe is completely original, or so he says, whatever that's gonna mean. But anyway, so the kind of core struggle with Westworld is it this theme park? Is it this place where people go to get away or to be entertained, or is it a place where people entertain themselves and advance themselves or whatever, you know? So that was kind of an interesting theme that we really got to see played up quite a bit more. There's also, of course, I think what's going to be a really prevalent idea is that of chaos versus order. There are many things that are said in this episode that deal with that theme. Of course, we've got the man in black who insists that reality and the outside world, that's where the bananas are at. That is where things are absolute blitz and insanity. And I can back him up on that, judging by everything that's gone down in 2016 alone. So I think he's onto something there. And then he contrasts that by juxtaposing reality with Westworld, where everything is ordered, everything is designed in a specific way. Every stone, every blade of grass has some kind of meaning. And to the man in black, this meaning is all about the game, which I guess he wants to win at whatever the cost. So he does these chaotic things, ironically enough, to reach that order, to reach whatever enlightenment is awaiting him at the place where the snake lays its eggs. But yeah, and there definitely seems to be quite an order to this place when we see things from the perspective of Dr. Ford, who as of yet is a still pretty enigmatic guy, but we actually get to see him walking the grounds of Westworld himself with a young child who I believe is probably a younger version of Ford himself. And we see that with the wave of his hand, he can tame and guide the rattlesnake. We see that he finds this church spire in the desert lands, and I think, of course, that he willed it into existence, or whatever the frick it is that he's doing. But yeah, to say that there is an order to the system, I think makes a lot of sense at this point, and will continue to make more sense, however horrifying that may turn out to be. Then, of course, there's also escapism versus coming closer to reality and the truth of things, which we get to see acted out with a newcomer, William, and his friend Logan, who's been around the block a time or two and insists that that this place not only seduces everybody, but it offers a taste of that which truly is the quintessence of something. Something that we want so desperately, but do we really? Again, stuff that I think is all blitzing through our brains. It's coming up quite strongly in Chestnut, certainly. The idea that it's not just a vacation place, although there are some guests that treat it that way, as is evidenced by some rando shooting up Teddy at the bar when he was just having a nice conversation with Maeve. And I have to take a little tangent here real quick, because I love the idea that Bernard was talking about, where the hosts are always trying to, what he says is error correct. They're trying to become more human. They talk, and in so doing they practice. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because whereas people can treat Westworld like a place to just get away and release all your inhibitions, the hosts, who are all there for the guests, they are learning and advancing and evolving and adapting, even because and in spite of the things that their human counterparts are doing around them. And of course, this reverie code is going to open the floodgates of madness as this cognitive contagion that started in Dolores and has now reached Maeve, as more of these figures in this world are able to access the memories from their previous builds, from their previous lives. And yeah, it's all about getting down to the truth for the synths too. So you best beware of that. Then we also have the idea of there's innocence versus experience, bliss versus knowledge. There's all these very biblical themes that are kind of intertwined. The idea that there's this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I feel like there's going to be something that we find in Westworld that's going to mirror that concept. And it's one that hosts like Dolores are already beginning to approach. The fruit of knowledge has been extended to her, and with that is going to come the ability to sin, to cause harm to a living being, which she's already done. And now we see that her sleep cycle has actually been disrupted to the point that she is waking herself up in the night, telling herself to remember, and then ultimately digging up a gun that I think she's gonna use. So these types of things are so exciting because they call into question everything that we see. Are these kinds of thoughts and is this way of thinking really just isolated to her? We have evidence to believe otherwise. So be placing your bets now on who's human and who's not, because I think chances are very strong that we are going to find out that one of the core characters who we are assuming is human, somebody at corporate, somebody in the creative department, whatever. They've got to be faking it. So let me know what your thoughts are in that regard. It might be a little bit early to tell, but I don't think it's too early to speculate. So let's go for it. Also, another interesting idea that was brought up through the storyline with the Man in Black is the idea of complacency versus suffering. When he takes Lawrence, this outlaw he finds at the gallows, and drags him all the way back to his hometown, kills off everybody in the village, just to get that morsel of direction from his daughter. He says, when you're suffering, that's when you're most real. And that, I think, is one of the quotes that has stuck with me the most. Of all the incredibly quotable material that we get in the show, that's something that has really seized on my consciousness. And it's fascinating that in the midst of the suffering of the hosts that are around him, we see that the daughter is singled out for her austere, completely unaffected disposition. And that's really unique and interesting to see. And then, of course, there's the idea of seduction, of being seduced by the Westworld experience, and then exploitation or subjugating and taking control of the experience, crafting it into what you want it to be. And then, of course, you've got to bear in mind that Ford is still the one who is masterminding this operation. And so while it seems like his philosophies and his ideas are quite noble and high-minded, I think at some point the creator is going to clench his fist, and creation inside that fist is going to really be feeling the pressure. Although I think the way that this act of creation is portrayed in Westworld, it seems to me that the message we're getting thus far, don't know if this is necessarily going to unfold throughout the course of the season, but there's this idea that creation, when taken into human hands, into the hands of a civilization that has apparently reached the pinnacle of achievement, when they create, it's impious. It's inherently imperfect. Ford himself describes it as a form of witchcraft. So it's the idea that getting to make this world and the hosts and humanoid beings that populate it. It's basically the black art of enlightenment is how it feels. And you know, the thing is, false gods, in the end, they will be bested by their creations. So another thing to place your bets on is Ford going to make it out of the season alive or not? Because there definitely seems to be some corporate dissatisfaction and dissent and a little interdepartmental drama, which I would still say is arguably the weakest part of the show thus far. I am at my happiest when we are roaming the Badlands of Sweetwater and beyond, but I think, again, we're just at the tip of the iceberg, so I'm not going to fault the show by any stretch of the imagination. And it's interesting to see all the miscommunications that are taking place. You know, there's this private consultation between Bernard and Dolores where he himself is seduced by what she has proven herself capable of, you know, and it's just, man, I just completely lost my train of thought. Oh no. Gosh dang it. This is what happens when I do all of these reviews off the cuff. So sorry if I was on a roll there and I just completely undermined myself. You know, it happens. But oh yes, I was talking about how the corporate stuff is sort of the weaker link in the show at this point, especially just compared to the visual majesty and radiance of Westworld and all the intricacies that we get to see there. But there are these miscommunications that are taking place as people attempt to explain what is going wrong with the hosts, how to fix them, who's going to be recalled, who's going to be redone, why this error takes place, and just to see all of these human interactions broken down into things that can be modified and fine-tuned. God, it's so fascinating. So when you focus on those elements and seeing the backstage of creation, that stuff to me continues to be really cool. I'm really excited about Maeve's storyline and to see her expanded. And she, like Dolores last week, got to perform some of the same material over and over again, but with so much nuance and power that it makes it thrilling. I think that duality and repetition continue to be two of the strongest points of this show in terms of their storytelling. It's really cool. Also, another thing about this episode is the idea of choice. We notice that William gets the opportunity to choose the cowboy white or the outlaw black. You know, you've got the wall of white hats and black hats. And I think that the ideas of heroism and villainy are going to come further into the spotlight the further that we get towards the maze and towards everything else that's going on. It was also super crazy to see Maeve waking up in the middle of this surgery and trying to maneuver this world and seeing how these things are becoming the fabric of her nightmares, but really that's her waking up. Which, I mean, can you fathom if our dreams were us coming into reality as it truly exists? That's why this show is so necessary and so amazing, and why I truly can't wait for everything that's in store. Also, another fun little musical tidbit. We got some of Radiohead's No Surprises. I don't know if you guys heard that in the piano this week. But yeah, I'm trying to keep my antennas working because clearly they're making some very interesting musical choices in this show that are very fun and make for great conversation, but I'm going to have to start winding this review down, I think. So what was your favorite aspect of this episode? I definitely think that Maeve's journey through underground Westworld was probably one of my favorite elements. Getting to see how she told the same speech over and over, but in different ways, and the different radiating impacts that had, and how her presentations were undercut by her emotions and her memories. And there's definitely this widening gap between what the creators and proprietors of Westworld understand and what the hosts are truly up to. And therein lies the chaos that I think we've all come for. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Any other details I would love for you guys to discuss in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this review, especially if you returned from my premiere review. It's been just amazing to discuss this with you guys. You are all the best. So please take care of yourselves. And as always, I will be back before you know it.